Welcome to Bovine Banter with the Penn State Extension Dairy team. My name is Ginger Fenton, and I'm an educator based in Mercer County, Pennsylvania. This episode is the final one in our series on dairy reproduction. The focus of this episode is using technology in repro from the producer perspective. Joining us today is Caroline Zimmerman, a producer from Blair County, Pennsylvania. Would you please introduce yourself and tell us about your farm, Caroline?
Yes, so as stated, I'm Caroline Zimmerman, and we are a fourth generation dairy farm located in Blair County. I farm along with my parents, husband, and brother, and we have about 250 total cows between milking and dry. And we farm about 400 acres of our own land and rented land.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. Can you tell our listeners about your repro program, including the goals and who's involved in working to meet those goals?
Yes, so obviously our goals are to continue to improve, but mainly we want to start seeing higher conception rates. And our biggest reason for this is as we have gotten better in an industry and personally as a farm, we're recognizing that we can utilize things like sex semen to become more efficient. Every single cow doesn't need to produce us a heifer. So that now offers us some different things that we can look forward to in the future. Our farm personally, as of right now, we're maintaining our size. So we don't have goals of rapid expansion or reduction at the moment. We want to maintain our size, improve our repro conception rates. We want to decrease our call rates and just become as efficient as we possibly can. And so the people that we really feel are kind of the team that I build around us starts number one with our vet, followed then by our nutritionist. And we utilize select sires for our semen. And along with select sires, one of the technology that they offer is the cow manager technology. So that's kind of how I view as like the team that's going to help us meet whatever our goals are going to be essentially.
I appreciate that you recognize it's a team effort. The focus of our conversation today is about applying technology in repro. So can you tell us about how you apply technology within your program? Things like what tools you're using, software, etc.
Yep. So the basic foundation is going to be your record keeping. So PC Dart. And then obviously, as I had stated before, we utilize the cow manager. So those are going to be two big technologies that are helping us really identify the cows. Cow manager has been a huge tool for us because with that health and heat detection, that has greatly increased conception rates, has greatly made us more confident with utilizing sex semen, of course. Especially their most recent update now, they actually can tell you the right time frame to breed a cow for sex semen versus conventional semen. So that has been a huge, huge improvement for us. And like I said, those technologies then with working with our vet and our repro technicians and select sires, all that combined together is what is going to help us. Like I said, I always go back to like conception rates because the higher our conception rates, the more efficient we're being with our sex semen and the more efficient we're being overall.
To build on that, I am guessing, or maybe you can share, are you using and relying on your smartphone a lot for this?
Yes. So Cow Manager, it has your PC application. So on your computer, it has a whole dashboard, and then it has on the phone as well. So the nice thing about that too is we can put on there all of the people that we want to allow access to our heat and health detection. So the wonderful thing about that is, remotely my vet can log on and look at cows. The breeding technicians can remotely log on and look at cows, and even our nutritionist, even though the nutritionist isn't directly involved with the reproductive, obviously healthy cows are going to breed best and healthy cows need a great diet. So even when we're looking to adjust nutrition goals to help with repro, even our nutritionist can log on and kind of see what's going on because cow manager isn't just heat detection, it also has a lot of health metrics, especially with rumination. So that's something very useful to our nutritionist as well.
Sure, that makes sense to have many perspectives looking at the data.
Yes.
You've mentioned conception rate. What other metrics do you use to track reproductive success, and how do you apply those in your management practices?
Mainly that conception rate and then the amount of services. In a perfect world, a cow, you breed her one time, she takes beautifully, and so you've spent the least amount of money possible to get that cow pregnant. Obviously, some cows are going to take more services, but I want to look at the average overall. Some farms use preg rate. I'm not quite as, I don't really like preg rates. Based on what you said as your voluntary time period, you can really manipulate that preg rate. So if you have a really, if you have a 50-day voluntary wait period, but on average your cows aren't getting bred till 90 days, well, then that really drags the preg rate down. Versus if your voluntary wait period isn't until 90 days, and that's on average when you're breeding cows, well, that can be a great preg rate. And you can have a good preg rate while still not having the greatest conception rate. And to me, that's where efficiency and like it goes back to money being spent. We're trying to really conserve money being spent, not waste semen, not have a lot of shots going into cows. And so those are my main two metrics that I'm going to be looking at is conception rate and the average of services it's taking to get a cow pregnant, because that's telling me how efficient we're actually being with our semen.
To follow up with that, I'm curious about how frequently you're checking those metrics.
After every single vet check, I'm always going to go back and look at the past couple of months. And this is something I review with my vet every time she's there as well. So you almost want to check it on monthly, quarterly basis. And then I also like to do once a year, I do a big review. So I do the entire previous year, 12 months. And I really like to break down each lactation as well. So another big thing with our farm is as we've gotten cow manager and as we've worked with our vet, we've really understood that efficiency comes from really tailoring things to the individual cow. And that's what's great about the cow manager is now we really get to look at the individual cow and figure out what is best for each cow. And so when I do any analysis, I break it down by lactation because that's another huge thing. A first lactation cow, a second lactation cow, or a third plus lactation cow, they really are completely different animals. And you can have completely different things going on with those animals. On our farm specifically, our cows are split up into two groups. So the first lactation cows are in their own barn and have their own TMR. And then our second plus lactation animals are in their own barn with their own TMR. And so, kind of to go back to nutrition and pull that in, if I'm seeing something going on in the first lactation group, then I can really put my focus there and say, okay, well, what's going on? And I can break it down by, days in milk or the intervals that, interval conception rates or their conception rates by days in milk, because that's really going to build me a picture of where my problem is. And that way, then, like I said, I can go back to my vet and pull in and say, hey, we're seeing issues at this very specific point in this very specific group. And we can really then tailor down to any little bottlenecks we have and address those issues.
And it sounds like attention to detail is very important to you.
Yes.
Where do you look for information about technology or new practices that you can use on your farm?
So lots of places. I always like to keep up with reading and articles. If I ever have a specific question, of course, I'll do the good old fashioned Google and try to, look and see if there's been studies. I love going to any educational seminar. So whether that's something being put on locally through our veterinarian office or a company's putting on some kind of educational seminar. I really love going to Dairy Summit every year. There's always amazing talks at that as well. Talking with my vet as well, because my vet is continuing to learn new things. Obviously, as a vet, she's constantly gaining new education, new experience as whatever new thing is coming out in the industry. So that's a huge resource that I utilize. And then, of course, talking to other farmers. That's kind of where we take all of our ideas and then we kind of see who's actually applying them and seeing how that's playing out on farm.
And to build on that, my next question is what, or maybe who, weighs in on your decisions about implementing new technologies or practices on your farm?
Obviously, all of us who are on farm managing it day to day, it's on us, like I said, to be diligent about seeing when we need to make improvements or make changes. So it starts with us. I have to be diligent about my own education and constantly learning. And like I said, I work very closely with my vet. So when I do learn something new at an educational seminar, or I read something, or I see a new studies out or something, I always then go to my vet because, like I said, that's the team, you know. So I start with my vet. If it's something nutrition wise, of course, we're going to pull the nutritionist into that talk, pull in the breeding techs if there's something going on there that we're looking to change or update. So it really comes down to a team effort. So it obviously starts with us on farm. We need to come up with the questions or the changes that we're thinking about, bring it to our team, and then collaborate together to accomplish whatever we're looking to.
So this question's a little different. Have you tried anything that didn't work well or that you didn't have success with on your first attempt?
Of course, one thing that we've been experimenting with the past couple of years. So our farm for quite a few years now, like I said, we had been utilizing sexed Holstein semen, and then we were utilizing beef semen then for any cows that we weren't going to breed with that sexed Holstein semen. Past couple of years, we started experimenting with sexed beef semen, so to get more male calves on the ground. As this crossbreed beef market is expanding, you know, we sell to a buying station, but we also have a local buyer who will buy calves on off of us and raise those beef crossbreds up. And obviously, the more males, the better. You know, a male crossbreed is obviously going to grow a little bit quicker, have a little bit more to finish with, and obviously a little bit more end product to offer. So we kind of heard that expressed that, you know, more male calves would be desired. And I also do see probably in the future there's going to be a higher dollar value for male calves versus the female ones. So we've been experienced with that sex beef semen because conception rate wise, the sex Holstein semen and the sex beef semen was performing pretty much the same, but it was figuring out though, because when we have our cows mated, obviously I know who genetically I should be looking to get Holstein heifers out of. And then, of course, all the rest are beef. But when we're looking at that group that is mated to beef, it's then saying to ourselves, okay, well, who though in that group that, okay, genetically, maybe she's not going to be, you know, we don't want offspring out of her because, you know, genetically, maybe she's not giving us quite the components that we like or you know quite the milk production that we like, but she still breeds very well. She's still a very healthy animal. She's not going to be leaving our herd anytime soon. She's a great average cow. Who are those cows that are still going to breed exceptionally well with sex semen? So the past couple of years we've been experimenting with that, and so of course we figured out the cows that aren't going to work quite as well with that, so that obviously led to our conception rate dropping a little bit. And as of right now, kind of what my data is showing me is my third plus lactation animals can't quite achieve the conception rates I would like with that sex semen. We're gonna have to use a lot more of that conventional beef semen in my third plus lactation girls. Whereas my first and second lactation, they seem to do really well with sexed Holstein or sexed beef semen.
I appreciate that you're looking at the data though and making that observation. I think that's great. As we start to wrap up, do you have any takeaway messages for our listeners who want to improve their repro program at their farm? What would you suggest that they do?
Your very foundation is going to be your records. One thing I always say about, so Select Sires does our mating, so they're looking at our genetic information, but it comes back to all of us on the farm to look at the cow in front of us to really determine, okay, we know all the genetics, we know who is genetically speaking a superior animal, but you got to look at the animal in front of you and say, okay, but is this particular animal, is she going to breed and should we breed her? So, and that's going to come from your records because a cow might look great genetically on paper, but if you're going to go through the records and see chronic foot problems or chronic health issues, that's a cow that you really shouldn't breed. It's time for her to leave the herd. And so that's going to be kind of your foundation. And what's going to help you with then determining that also is having, like I said, building your team. You really do got to build a team with your veterinarian, your nutritionist, the semen company that you're working with, and any of your breeding technicians that are involved as well. That's going to then really, like I said, help you become more efficient. And then, of course, embracing technology. Like I said, I can't speak highly enough about the cow manager and just the leaps and bounds that it has helped our farm with efficiencies. you have to embrace it. Data is your money, and there's money in your data. Once you have a hold of that data, you can just really identify those key areas that need improvement.
Thank you, Caroline, for taking the time to talk to us, and thank you to our listeners. Don't forget to tune in for future episodes of Bovine Banter. And if you have any questions about today's episode, you can email me at gdc3@psu.edu.